The arena was silent. Not the kind of silence you hear when a match is boring. No, this was different. This was the kind of silence that wraps around your throat and doesn't let go. The kind that crushes your chest before you even know why. The kind that makes you feel like you've been punched in the gut. And tonight, WWE fans across the world felt that exact same punch. Because Jimmy Uso, one half of one of the most legendary tag teams in WWE history, was gone. There was no entrance music. No pyro. No SmackDown theme. Just the heavy, crushing sound of air and heartbreak filling the arena as the Titantron lit up with a single, chilling message. In memory of Jonathan Salifa Fatu, 1985-2025. You could hear the gasps. You could see grown men covering their mouths. And if you looked closely enough, you could see children clinging to their parents, their little minds struggling to process what they'd just read. This wasn't a storyline. This wasn't kayfabe. This wasn't some shocking heel turn or a wild bloodline swerve. This was real. And then, the camera cut to the stage. Jey Uso was standing there. Alone. No flashy shirt. No snapback. No chain swinging around his neck. Just a plain black hoodie, the hood pulled up over his head, shadowing his face. But you could still see his eyes. Red, swollen, and filled with the kind of pain no championship belt could ever fix. He didn't even walk to the ring like we're used to seeing him. There was no swagger. No USO bounce. No energy. Just slow, dragging steps. Like every foot he placed on the ramp weighed 100 pounds. And when he finally slid into the ring, he didn't pose. He didn't talk. He just stood there, holding a microphone, staring at the mat as the crowd chanted, "Jimmy. Jimmy. Jimmy." But the chant wasn't loud. It wasn't wild. It was soft, shaky, filled with disbelief, the kind of chant people make when they're still trying to convince themselves that maybe this is all some sick storyline. But deep down, they knew, it wasn't. And then, Jey spoke. "Man, I don't even know how to start this," he said, his voice breaking instantly. "Y'all know me. Y'all know my brother. We been doing this since day one. Day one-ish. And now, my day one, my twin, my best friend in this whole damn world, he's gone." He paused. The crowd went dead silent. You could hear someone sobbing in the third row. "He been fighting injuries for years, man," Jey continued, his voice trembling. "Y'all seen it. ACL tears, shoulder surgeries, concussions, but he kept getting back up. Every single time. 'Cause that's what we do. That's what we was taught. But this time," he stopped mid-sentence, pressing the microphone to his lips, trying to hold himself together, but he couldn't. His voice cracked completely. This time, he didn't get back up. The arena felt like it froze in time. People weren't even breathing. The crowd that once screamed in unison for the Usos now stood in a haunting silence. Jey Uso, eyes swollen and red from endless crying, stepped onto that ramp not as a performer, not as a tag team champion, but as a grieving twin who had just lost the other half of his soul. Yeet. The chant that had once been their rallying cry, barely escaped the lips of a few fans before it dissolved into quiet sobs. This wasn't a night for celebration. This was the night the WWE Universe came face to face with a brutal reality. Jimmy Uso was gone. The story of how they got here will leave you furious. For years, Jimmy pushed through pain the way only the toughest wrestlers can. Every single superkick, every risky dive over the ropes, every ladder match where he landed on steel instead of canvas, they all took a piece of him. And the truth, WWE's grueling schedule doesn't care if you're limping, doesn't care if your shoulder is torn, doesn't care if you wake up dizzy from repeated blows to the head. The show must go on, even if it kills you. Jimmy was too loyal to stop. Too proud to admit how bad it was. Backstage, Jey would beg him. "Use. Just take a break. We'll come back strong." But Jimmy would shake his head with that USO grin and say, "Nah, bro. The bloodline needs us. You need me." He wrestled through knee injuries that would have sidelined most athletes for a year. He endured concussion symptoms that doctors warned could get worse with every hit. And worst of all, he hid it from the fans. He didn't want anyone to see weakness. But every bump, every table spot, every head hitting that mat was another step closer to the tragedy that would rip his brother's world apart. It all came crashing down during what should have been a regular night. A tag match. Nothing extreme. Nothing like the wars they'd fought before. But after a routine superkick, Jimmy's chest tightened. His breathing went ragged. His hand clutched at his heart. Jey noticed immediately. The panic in his eyes was instant. Yo, something's wrong. Get help." The match stopped cold. The referee signaled frantically for medics. The crowd thought it was part of the show at first, until they saw the terror on Jey's face. This wasn't kayfabe. This was real. Jimmy Uso collapsed in his twin brother's arms before the medics could even roll in the stretcher. Jey's voice cracked as he shouted his brother's name over and over, shaking him as if he could will him back to life. The WWE cameras cut away, but those who were there will never forget the sight. Backstage was chaos. Doctors and EMTs swarmed. Wrestlers stood frozen, unsure whether to pray or cry. Roman Reigns, visibly shaken, paced the hallway with his hands on his head. Paul Heyman, for once, was speechless. Minutes felt like hours. And then the news broke backstage: Jimmy was gone. The years of brutal punishment to his body, the untreated injuries, the endless travel, the constant performance without rest, it had all caught up to him. His heart had given out. When Jey heard the words, he dropped to his knees and let out a scream so raw, so filled with anguish, that even the toughest locker room veterans couldn't hold back their tears. This wasn't just losing a brother. This was losing half of himself. And when Jey finally walked back out to address the WWE Universe, the arena was drowned in grief. Fans held up USO shirts, YEET signs, and pictures from their legendary matches. Some cried openly. Others just stood in silence. The room was cold, eerily quiet except for the faint hum of the hospital machines. Jey sat in the corner, his head buried in his hands. He hadn't cried this hard since they lost their grandfather years ago, but this was different. This was his brother, his twin, his other half, the man he had spent every single day of his life with. And now, Jimmy was gone. And the worst part, Jey kept asking himself, did WWE play a part in this? Did the grind, the endless bumps, the reckless schedule, push my brother's body past the point of no return? The doctors had been clear. Years of wear and tear had weakened Jimmy's heart, his back, his joints, and they believed it all compounded over time. Multiple concussions, rib fractures, torn ligaments, dislocated shoulders, every single injury piled on, year after year. Jey replayed the memories like a cruel highlight reel. The night in 2015 when Jimmy tweaked his knee but kept wrestling because WWE didn't want the Usos off TV. The cage match in 2019 where Jimmy landed wrong and couldn't breathe for almost 2 minutes, but still finished the match. The time they were told, it's just a sprain, when in reality, his ankle was fractured. Every bump, every dive, every table spot, every ladder crash, it was entertainment for the fans, but it was slowly killing him. Jey's tears turned to anger. He thought about how Jimmy had once told him, day one-ish till the day we die, use, but I just hope the day we die ain't in that ring. And now, here they were. That day had come too soon. As the family gathered around, Roman Reigns walked in, eyes red from crying. He put a hand on Jey's shoulder, his voice breaking. We gave this business everything, use. And it took everything from us. The room went silent. You could feel the pain, the resentment, the rage building. Because this wasn't just the story of Jimmy Uso's death. This was the story of how WWE's relentless machine had chewed up another wrestler and spit him out. Jey stood there, his eyes locked on the casket as the final words of the eulogy were spoken. Every syllable felt like a dagger straight to the heart. The crowd had fallen silent, almost as if the world itself was mourning with him. The only sound was the wind whispering through the trees, carrying memories of matches, moments, and laughter that would never come again. Jey's mind flashed back to that one night in particular, their tag team title win at WrestleMania. The roar of the fans, the lights blinding them, the confetti falling like a blessing from above, they had done it together. And now, all that was left were those echoes. And they weren't comforting, they were haunting. As the priest lowered his voice, Jey slowly walked forward, carrying a single white lei. This wasn't just a tradition, it was their tradition. Back in the early days, when they were still fighting to be noticed in WWE, they'd promised each other, no matter what happens, no matter how far we go, we'll honor each other like our family taught us, island style. With trembling hands, he placed the lei on the casket. His lips quivered as he whispered, you'll always be my brother. No titles, no matches, no crowds, just us. But deep down, Jey wasn't just grieving the loss of his twin, he was furious. Furious at the business that had taken so much from them. Furious at the brutal schedules, the unending travel, the injuries that were brushed off with painkillers and pep talks. He knew Jimmy had been in pain for years. And yet, WWE kept pushing, kept booking them in dangerous spots, high-risk matches, ladder crashes, table slams, all for ratings and ticket sales. Jey could feel his fists clenching. His family, his blood, was gone, and it wasn't just fate, it was the system. The same system they had given everything to. The sound of sobbing broke through his thoughts. His mother was leaning into Roman Reigns, who stood stoic but glass-eyed, clearly fighting his own war inside. Roman and Jimmy had fought side by side for years in the Bloodline storyline, but off-screen, they were family in every sense. Now, Roman's leadership aura was gone. He just looked like a man who had lost a little brother. Paul Heyman, surprisingly, was there too, and even he seemed genuinely broken. No scheming, no smugness, just a man holding his head down in grief. But for Jey, this moment wasn't just about saying goodbye, it was about deciding what came next. He knew that if Jimmy's death was swept under the rug, WWE would move on in weeks, acting like it never happened. Just like they did with so many others before. And in that moment, Jey made a silent promise, not just to Jimmy, but to himself, and to every wrestler out there who'd suffered in silence. He would make them hear him. He would make them understand. And he wouldn't stop until something changed. The casket began to lower. The crowd collectively gasped as reality hit. This was it. There would be no more promos together, no more double superkicks, no more YEET chants bouncing between them. The Usos were no more. Jey couldn't take it anymore. He turned, eyes red and burning, and faced the fans gathered at the service. His voice cracked at first, but then it rose with raw, unfiltered pain. They called us entertainers. They called us superstars. But they forgot. We're human. My brother gave everything for this business. And what did it give him back? Broken bones, busted knees, concussions, and now, a grave. The crowd was stunned. Cameras from every wrestling news outlet zoomed in, knowing this was a moment that would explode online. They'll tell you it's just the grind. They'll say it's part of the job. But this isn't part of the job. My brother deserved better. And I'm gonna make sure no other family goes through this again. Jey's voice shook with emotion, but there was steel in his eyes. The kind of steel that said this wasn't just talk, this was a declaration of war. Roman stood behind him now, his hand gripping Jey's shoulder. For the first time in a long time, Roman didn't look like the tribal chief, he looked like the cousin who had Jey's back since day one. The crowd started chanting Jimmy's name. At first softly, but then it grew, and grew, until it shook the very air. Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy. Jey closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. Somewhere, somehow, he hoped Jimmy could hear it. Jey's speech moved everyone to tears. He spoke about the brotherly bond they shared both on and off the screen. Jimmy wasn't just my twin, he was my heartbeat. Every step I took in that ring, I felt him right there with me. Every cheer we heard, every boo, every high and low, we went through it together. And now, I have to walk that path alone. But I promise you, Jimmy, I'll carry your light with me. Always. The arena was silent except for the soft cries of fans, some openly sobbing. Jey placed a lei, a symbol of love and respect in their Samoan culture, on the mat in Jimmy's honor. Roman Reigns, breaking from his stoic demeanor, stepped forward and embraced Jey in a long, emotional hug. For the first time in years, the bloodline wasn't about dominance or betrayal, it was about family and loss. Backstage, WWE officials were visibly shaken. Michael Cole's voice cracked on commentary as he paid tribute to Jimmy's legacy. Jimmy Uso will forever be remembered as one of the greatest tag team competitors of all time. His passion, charisma, and love for the fans will never be forgotten. As the night ended, WWE aired a montage of Jimmy's most iconic moments, from their debut in 2010 to their record-breaking tag team title runs, from wild ladder matches to emotional promos. It wasn't just a highlight reel, it was a love letter to a man who gave his all to this business. Outside the wrestling world, tributes poured in from other sports stars, celebrities, and even rival promotions. AEW's The Young Bucks tweeted, "Tag team wrestling wouldn't be what it is today without the Usos. Rest easy, Jimmy. Thank you for inspiring us." On social media, fans started the hashtag #ThankYouJimmy, sharing memories, photos, and personal stories of meeting him. One fan wrote, "I met Jimmy Uso in 2017. He treated me like family. I'll never forget his smile. Rest in power." But the grief wasn't just in WWE, it was in living rooms across the world. For over a decade, Jimmy Uso had been part of people's weekly lives. He wasn't just an entertainer, he was a brother, a friend, a symbol of perseverance. And now, the question loomed, how will Jey Uso move forward without him? Will he step away from wrestling to heel? Or will he carry the USO legacy on his own, fighting in Jimmy's honor? One thing was certain, the world of professional wrestling would never be the same. Jimmy Uso may be gone, but his legacy will echo forever in the chants, the matches, and the hearts of millions.